you hear the phrase battle of the sexes, what comes to mind? A game between males and females? Or a fight between males and females? How about a competition for which gender is better than the other? This battle of the sexes, is it positive and healthy for male-female relationships and interaction? It appears more and more that there's a growing polarity between the genders. The feminist movement for women who seem not to like men, the MGTOW movement for men who are fed up with feminists' utter disregard for men. But other than the tension between the genders, I'm really more interested in a way for us to bridge the gap between both genders and for both genders to love and appreciate one another truly and deeply, rather than fight with one another. As a young boy, I used to hear women on TV always campaigning for the emancipation of women. They were always fond of using the line, "What a man can do, a woman can do better." I never really understood what that was all about, but as a little boy, I always wondered, well, if they're talking about cooking, keeping the home, and other things that I knew about women, then I can't argue with that. It wasn't until I was older that I began to understand that many women were actually being mistreated in the society by certain men. When I was 9 years old, I remember being unfair in my treatment of particular girls, but that was because certain popular boys I was friends with were unkind to them. I felt awkward after treating them badly because I really didn't want to do that, so I stopped that quickly enough. That same year, one of my closest friends was a girl. I guess after then I considered it childish to mistreat girls just because they weren't boys. So I believed that outside of being a child, women couldn't possibly be oppressed by adult men because they're adults and not children. Therefore, you should be more mature, right? At least all the class teachers I had when in primary school were all women, and they gave me my basic knowledge in life. My mom raised me along with my dad and disciplined my brothers and I when we did wrong. My sisters were all older than me and were pretty self-sufficient, so they didn't need my brothers and me to teach them about life. So if anything, there was no way I would think that some men existed that actually looked down on women. That was until the day a man from my clan came visiting my dad. They were discussing while a local movie was on TV. It was about a woman who was constantly being brutalized by her husband. She eventually took him to court and won the case. That's when this man from my clan chimed in. I didn't even know he was following the story while talking to my dad. He was so disgusted that the woman won the case despite the fact that justice was served. I was happy for the woman in the story, but then again I was confused by this man's reaction. I remember trying to let him know that the man was wicked and deserved the final judgment against him. But he just kept on blabbering about women, not just about the woman in the story. My dad didn't exactly know what to tell him, probably because he didn't fully understand what he was going on about. My mom was clearly upset, but said nothing. I still couldn't understand how any adult could sentimentally not want a person to get justice, because he couldn't stand the fact that the story ended with a woman winning a man who deserved punishment. There was another case that happened in my neighborhood. Many years later, there was a young couple that lived on the block. Almost every day, their next door neighbors would hear the lady screaming and crying as one being beaten. No one knew them well because they just recently moved in, and as a result, they were hesitant about getting involved in the matter. The neighbors always gossiped about it, and the gossip began to spread. It sounded like this had gone on for too long, so one day, when the man was returning from work, my sister decided to catch up with him to scold him for beating his girlfriend every time. The man was shocked that the neighbors actually thought this. He finally understood why the neighbors suddenly started staring at him weirdly and kept avoiding him after a while. This was when he revealed that he had never laid a hand on his girlfriend. He was actually the one being brutalized by her. She would slap him and hit him, all while screaming and crying at the same time. The noise, however, stopped not long after that, probably because they felt compelled to find a way to resolve their differences quietly. So now we have a case where a man always wants his fellow man to come out victorious over a woman, irrespective of how bad the man is. And another case where the woman takes advantage of the common knowledge that many men do brutalize their wives in order to frame her innocent husband because she was mad at him. With these two scenarios, I have to ask if this is what the battle of the sexes is really about. One gender always having to win the other, irrespective of anything else. I know the above are isolated cases, but there are hundreds of cases where either the man or the woman gets ill-treated by the other. But from reports, it sounds like the men are the ones that mistreat women a lot more than you hear about women mistreating men. Say domestic violence, for instance, situations where husbands batter their wives and she stays quiet, probably because they have children together and she's trying to stick around because of them, or for a myriad of other reasons. What we don't hear so often is about cases of men that actually suffer domestic violence from their wives, probably because the man is ashamed to admit it for fear of being ridiculed or for whatever other reasons. Now, with this being the case, is it right to suggest that because we hear more news of men mistreating women, women's issues should then be taken more seriously than the issues suffered by men? Is this one of the ways we can get to ensure the emancipation of women? If you think like I do, this will only reverse the problem and preserve it. In other words, the women will be mistreating men instead, and this time it will be the men screaming for emancipation. This clearly isn't going to help with a healthy relationship between men and women. What really brought about the battle of the sexes, and how many millennia has this been going on, and why? If the battle of the sexes revolves around one gender trying to suppress the other, and the other trying in turn to suppress the other, then could we think of ways to stop that cycle and seek for healthier ways of interacting with one another? If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. Also, subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss the next upload. Don't forget to share the videos on other platforms and to your family and friends that may find the information helpful. God bless you.